Hello, it's Tiffany from Rattle the Stars Studios, and today I am so excited to take you through the process of making some 18th century undergarments. We're going to be doing the shift, the stays, some pockets, and some panniers, or side hoops, whatever you'd like to call them, but either way, we are going to have some big hips to support some big skirts later. So let's dive in. So we are going to be working with Simplicity 8579. It is the American Duchess pattern that they put out with Simplicity that is all of these wonderful undergarments. This is actually a really great pattern. It was very easy to use and very simple to work with, which I appreciated. As always, I start by tracing out my pattern pieces. I prefer to use a tracing paper because it is sturdier than pattern paper, but still see-through and allows me all of that flexibility to trace things out. I do prefer to trace my patterns because that lets me preserve all of the pattern sizes so that this pattern can be reused over and over and over again. It's just a thing I really like to do, and I encourage others to do it too. Patterns are expensive, so why buy another one if you need a different size? So we are going to start with our most under layer, the shift. This is a very simple garment. It's going to be the item of clothing that is closest to the body, so you want something soft and durable that will help keep you cool. I chose to use a cotton lawn. It's very soft, and one of my favorite properties about cotton lawn is that the more you wash it, the softer it gets. So it is really nice for a base layer. Because this fabric frays a lot, I have chosen to fell down all of the seams. I am doing a machine felling for everything that I can fit under my machine, just for ease and simplicity's sake. You are welcome to hand sew them down if you'd prefer that for your finishing. I did hand sew a few pieces that I couldn't fit into my machine, but for the most part this is machine felled and completely machine sewn. Again, you can hand stitch if you'd prefer, but I chose not to. I did a very simple double fold hem for the sleeves and the bottom of the shift, but at the neckline, I did hand sew a rolled hem for this because there is a sort of scoop and shaped parts of the neckline. I just found this a lot easier than trying to do a double fold around with my machine, and I think it turned out really nice. Now on to the stays. These are the biggest piece in terms of construction and things needed for it. I will say that the pattern size that I had, it was too big. I have changed sizes since I bought this pattern, so really make sure you looked at those finished garment measurements when picking your pattern size for these. I knew going in that the stays would be a little big, but I wasn't terribly worried. I also went in anticipating that I was going to have to adjust the slits for the tabs because I am very short-waisted. And it turns out I was right. We need to bring the slits up. I also am going to be lowering the back about an inch because part of the point of this is that it's going to fit some fairy wings. I am also going to shorten, like width-wise, the back panels, because this is closing fully in the back. So as you can see, I've made adjustments to my pattern pieces. I've adjusted the slits. I've brought the sides up because I need more space there. The top has been lowered and I've adjusted the width of that. So now it's on to the fashion fabric. So because of the mock-up and having those fitting things fixed then, I was able to adjust my pattern and move right on in to my fashion fabric. I chose a red duck cloth for the outside. It has 2 layers of coutil, which you could substitute for additional canvas layers if you don't have the budget for coutil, and 1 cotton lining layer. The outside is all bound in a red pre-made bias tape, and then the top straps pieces are a twill tape. For boning, I decided to save a little money and a little bit of headache, and I went with zip ties for my inner boning. This is something that is mentioned on the pattern envelope that you can do, and I honestly thought it worked out really well. It was tedious. It took a few hours to cut everything, sand the edges, and get them all inside those boning channels. And if you want to see part of that process, you can check out my D&D costume video. I used zip ties boning for that as well, and you can see more of the process there. When the boning was all in, that's when I was able to bind all of the edges. So I bound the outer layers, which is the duck cloth and coutil, and the lining, and it's all completely bound at the top and the bottom. I did do the initial sew on of the bias tape with my machine and then hand stitched it down on the inside. This worked just fine, but going around those edges for the tabs isn't as pretty as it could be, so I would recommend just hand binding the entire thing. It will end up giving you more sort of control going around some of those tight corners. So I would probably do that the next time, but for this, it's not a big deal. Also, this is an internal layer and no one's gonna see it, so I'm not that worried about it. Once everything was bound, I added in the grommets for lacing. This is something that you could have put into the back panel piece before putting everything together. I chose to wait till the end for some reason, but I highly recommend putting it in first, especially if you've done your mock-up and you know that it will lace exactly where it is. So I used grommets for this. You could also hand sew eyelets, but I had these on hand and I chose to go with that. The lacing pattern that is on these stays from the actual Simplicity pattern is for standard crisscross lacing. If you want to spiral lace, which is more historically accurate, you will want to adjust the lacing pattern and the placement of your eyelets so that it alternates versus being directly across from each other. I don't mind this because since these are backlaced and I typically get into things by myself, I chose to leave the standard lacing placement and lace it up sort of like a corset so that I am able to tightly lace it by myself. But it would be nice to have them historically spiral laced. So like I said, if you do that, make sure you adjust where your eyelets are. And the final piece is the hook and bars that I attached to the front and the ends of the twill tape straps. And those just hook at the front of the stays. So they go around the shoulders, they crisscross, and they hook in the front. I just used standard hook and bars for like skirt hooks for this, but use what you got. And honestly, that's the end of the stays. It's a lot of steps, there's a lot to it, but it's all pretty straightforward. Pockets. Pockets are probably one of my favorite things about 18th century, especially with the side hoops, because the pockets get hidden by the side hoops and you can keep so many snacks in there. Just like a mind-boggling amount of snacks. The great thing about pockets is they're a very simple shape. So I just drafted up the shape for mine. It's essentially a giant tier, but the top is flat. And one of those pieces gets a slit cut in the front so that you can get your hands in there. When you're making your pockets, make sure you can fit your phone and make them big enough for like at least 20 fruit snacks because, you know, priorities. So my pockets I chose to make out of an old quilted pillow sham for the decorative like front layer. The back is a white denim just so I have something with additional strength to match that quilted piece. And then I just bound everything in a white pre-made bias tape, and I use that bias tape for the waistband as well. What's also really nice about these pockets is that they tie on, so you can kind of adjust them how you need. If they need to sit a little lower on the hips, you can do that. If they need to sit higher at the natural waist, you can do that. You get some flexibility. For mine, I chose to do 2 pockets, so I have 1 pocket on each side of my hips, but you can always just do 1, or you can make 2 pockets that tie on separately to give you more options. It's they're really a fun accessory. So go wild, and again, make sure you can carry all of the snacks. Panniers, side hoops, whatever you'd like to call them. These are wild. Basically, the point is to make your hips as big as you possibly can. These are not nearly as wide as some of them could get historically, but proportionally to me, they are giant. So this is really, really simple to make. It is essentially 2 squares with some bias tape on the front to hold the boning, and then you just bind the edges, add a waistband, and add some twill tape to tie it into that hoop shape. It's very simple, very easy. I chose to use a white denim for the fabric of mine, plus white pre-made bias tape as my boning channels and to edge the full piece. And then I used twill tape for my waistband as well as all of those side ties. For these panniers, I did choose to use zip ties, like thicker, heavier zip ties for the boning, because the dress fabric that I have is going to be really, really lightweight and it won't put a lot of weight on the side hoops as I'm wearing it. I'm not terribly worried about the zip ties, but I would honestly recommend getting hoop steel for this, or like hoop boning, so that it truly is sturdy and supportive and keeps the shape really well. The zip ties work and I'm going to be using them for a while, but there's a really good chance that in the future I will upgrade these to have hoop boning in them. Thanks for watching. I hope this was informative and has inspired you to go off and make your own 18th century undergarments. This was such a blast to put together for the Costume Symposium 2021, or COSI, as it's colloquially spelled and called. If you've made it this far, I would love to reward you with a badge for your participation. Check out that link in the description box below, and you can redeem badges for up to a week after the event. So get on that so you don't miss out. Also, please check out all of the other videos and creators that are a part of the Costume Symposium this year. There's so much amazing content, so many amazing people involved that I'm just so excited to be here with them. Please check them all out. I will have a link to the schedule and everything that you need to know in the description as well. Thanks so much for watching. If you would like more costume and sewing shenanigans from me, hit that subscribe button and the bell notification so that you know every time that I post. And until next time, I'll catch you later.